Well, good afternoon and welcome to Voices of Faith Transforming the Community. The mission of Voices of Faith, better known as SAP, really is to engage community leaders throughout the Saginaw Bay Midland area for the purpose of helping us understand services, learning ways to empower our members, and working collectively to make our region a better place. We do that with strength, love, and boldness so that we can ensure at the end of the day that Saginaw is maximizing everything that it has on an equitable perspective, a practical perspective. Our real game plan is we want to make Saginaw better. That's the game plan at the end of the day. I'm your host again, Dr. Craig Tatum. I serve as pastor for New Life Baptist Ministries. I'm also the president for Saginaw African American Pastors. I'm going to be your host on today. And today, my special guest, and I say this a lot, I really mean this. Today, our special guest is an impact agent in the community on so many different levels, doing some phenomenal things to transform not only the community, but lift those that often struggle in our community. So again, before we go a step further, hey, like and share. Again, call friends and loved ones, tell them that we're on the air. I want to welcome a good friend and brother in the person of Mr. Dan Streeter, who is Chief Executive Officer for City Rescue Mission of Saginaw. So let me welcome you, Mr. Streeter, and I'm going to be a little bit informal and just say, Dan, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
And just say, Dan, tell us a little about yourself, how long you've served as Chief Executive Officer of City Rescue Mission, and we're going to roll our sleeves up and get some good work done. Now, for those of you that are watching, get your pen and pencil out. You're going to help some people with the information that you're going to receive on today. So, Dan, welcome.
So, thanks so much for inviting me. This is a great honor to be able to engage with this. And I look back to even our relationship. It seems like maybe just 3 years ago. It's been not that long that we've gotten to really the chance to start to professionally and community-wise to be able to start to get to know each other.
Right.
And that's been a tremendous blessing.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit more about yourself. Go ahead and tell us, because I think the other thing that people need to understand is that sometimes we have individuals that are born right here in this community that God has blessed with favor and grace to advance the ranks. And I want residents in Saginaw Bay City and Midland, even Flint, to know that there is opportunity if you're willing to seize the moment, if you're willing to put in the work, if you're willing to wait your turn, your time will come. So talk a little bit about yourself.
So the amazing thing is that Rescue Ministries has been in existence since 1905.
Okay.
Started
wow.
in downtown Saginaw. We're celebrating our 120th year this year. So that there's a little bit of responsibility to make sure that the ship doesn't crash while I'm at the helm, right?
Absolutely.
And so I've known about the mission pretty much my entire life, having grown up here in the Saginaw area. And mom and dad started with the ministry. Dad felt committed to City Rescue Mission at that time.
Okay.
And I don't think a lot of people remember that it used to be over on 3rd and Lapeer, so really just a few blocks away from your current ministry.
Wow. Okay. That's good history to know.
And that it was just a men's shelter. They had an annual budget of $30,000. And Dad started as a volunteer on the board of directors, and he was there for about a year. And then I think it was in 1976 that director then resigned.
Okay.
And Dad became the sole staff member as the director then. And so I've known the ministry basically, I was like 9 years old when that happened. And so I've grown up around the ministry, knowing it. And I think that's helped me to have an appreciation for it all these years. So I went off to college after having, I could tell you a bunch of fun stories of what it meant as a youth around homeless individuals, and it impacted me a lot. But when I left to go off to college, I thought I didn't want anything to do with it. I was going to go off into education. And as I think maybe even some Saginaw people, I felt like I escaped Saginaw and I got bigger and better plans.
Right.
But, as you can relate, our plans aren't always God's plans.
Amen to that.
And so God pulled both my wife and I back.
Okay.
And in 1992, we started getting involved again as staff members of the ministry. And now my wife is involved with the culinary services. So she's doing all the food prep for 2 locations and overseeing that department. And then I became director of the organization 15 years ago.
Wow. Excellent. Excellent. So for people that are not aware, there again, City Rescue Missions of Saginaw. What is the population that your emphasis is on?
So in 2005, we expanded our not just City Rescue Mission, but then also Good Samaritan Rescue Mission, which is then why we also expanded the name of the organization. And so I guess you would say our door opener is about homelessness.
Okay.
That's what is the thing that drives a lot of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But what's been amazing as we've been able to dig into this more, and as the community has supported it, we've been able to grow and to be able to accomplish more things as we saw where the need is at. The community empowers us through donations, through volunteerism, through engagement for us to have dreams about what more we could do, and then to watch God continue to open up those doors.
Excellent. And I think people, when people hear homeless, they say, well, no, that doesn't apply to me. And let me just make sure people understand. It is no one's intent to be homeless. And I need to make that crystal clear. And let's understand, when you think of the term homelessness, people think that these are poor individuals. And you can run into a streak of bad luck in a heartbeat. You can go from having a home, a family, to being, again, taken out of that environment due to abuse or death or fire or whatever. And nobody intends that. So it happens. It happens to the educated, the uneducated, the rich, the poor. It happens to anybody. So when you think about that, describe, if you will, kind of an atmosphere of those that come in your doors.
So you've helped relay a lot of it, but it's such a complex issue. So let me throw out a couple statistics to help kind of give a perspective.
All right.
State of Michigan last year experienced over 33,000 people that were homeless.
Wow.
City Rescue Mission and Good Samaritan, between those 2 locations, we helped serve 2,042 people and provided over 115,000 meals, over 75,000 nights of lodging. That starts to give you a perspective of how big of an issue. And an average night, 230 people are needing a place to stay. And just like what you said, people become homeless. It's because all they've known is rejection. They've run into these barriers that were unplanned for. Sometimes they've made bad decisions.
Correct.
But the reality is that, and I've said this often, people show up in the mission not because they've run out of money,
right,
but because they've run out of relationships. So, a lot of times maybe someone has tried to, you're staying with a family, a friend, there's a mental health issue. There's a severe substance abuse issue.
Correct.
Episodic, or lost a job, or a medical situation that have come up. So many people in our community are living right on the edge. They're living right on the edge. They're what we call the Alice population, or even less than that. And 70% are coming through and experiencing homelessness every year for the first time in their lives.
Wow.
That's why it's so important to us, because we know that by the time somebody shows up on the doorstep, they've known rejection, they've heard no, there's these walls, there's the oppression. Now we're trying to help them to know that this community cares.
Gotcha. And it's safe to say, and you can help me with this, and I think the listening audience needs to hear this. And I've got a quote that'll relate to it at the end. That there, and I don't know the stats, but there are scores of people that are one paycheck from being homeless. Is that a fair assessment?
That's a very fair assessment. And even the city of Saginaw. So obviously, with working here for 32 years and seeing the condition, I have a passion for what's happening here in our community. and to be able to see that our community continues to see an economic downturn, and that to see so many people, a statistic that I'd seen was that over 60% of the people who live in the city of Saginaw are receiving some form of public assistance.
Wow.
And so that tells you just really how much things have become depressed in this area, and that we need to corporately as a community start to come together. And that's part of what's started to now motivate some of the new ventures that we're trying to work into with rescue ministries.
Excellent. So when we think about rescue ministries, most people think, okay, this is just a place for a person. But the reality is it could be a person, it could be families. I'm sure everybody walks through that door. And I think you made some very critical points that sometimes there's people that, might struggle with mental illness, that family have just said, we don't want you anymore, find someplace else. We're threatened by you, we're concerned. Sometimes people don't take their medications, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is sometimes it could be a mother and a daughter. It could be a father and a son. It could be a family. How long can a person stay, regardless to who they are? If it's a family, what are the dynamics there at your place?
So we try to, first of all, restore hope, and we're hoping to engage with an individual. Every situation is different, and usually there's probably 2, 3, 5 issues that are causing for everything to unravel.
Okay.
And so our case managers have to have kind of the wisdom of Solomon to try to unravel and build a trust so that people feel comfortable to open up.
I got you.
And then the hope is that then they can see their potential, and then we can start to open up doors of opportunity for them. And about 15 years ago, when I became director, one of the things I really wanted to make sure is that we want to build trust. But part of the way you build trust is by making sure that you have meaningful solutions where people have their needs met and they know it. And so, like even the case management we do, we network with the other service providers purposefully and know exactly what they have and build relationships with them. So then that way we can set an appointment and we know what that person can qualify for in advance. It knocks down a lot of barriers and waste of time. And then it builds that trust because now that person knows that we're going to help be an agent of change for them and help advocate for them.
And so, and just kind of a segue into the next question that I want to ask. So you talked about it to some degree, but what are some of the services? Because I think, and I want people to understand, this is not just a place, well, I ain't got no place to stay tonight, I guess I'll go stay there.
Right.
And that's not the way this is designed.
So anybody that's homeless can show up. We have a limited number of beds.
Okay.
And so we do have times where we hit capacity. And when that happens, then we'll put you on a waiting list. And as soon as a bed becomes available or a room becomes available for a family, then we'll put that family unit into that. Day one, when they show up, then we're going to engage with them 3 meals a day. They're going to get the clothing that they need, the hygiene products. We sit down with the case management. We offer other pieces that will help with their mental psyche, like a parenting support group, or a life skill class. And then we also have what we call our Impact Designs program.
Excellent.
And so that also opens up an opportunity for them that once they do all the work, and this is also kind of an alarming thing, there's a lack of affordable housing in the state of Michigan and all across the country.
Correct.
And so we're seeing shelter stays elongate. In the state of Michigan, the average shelter stay last year was 78 days.
Wow.
Now at City Rescue Mission, we've been successful and seen that be more like 62 days.
Okay.
So we're a little bit quicker on that, but the more important part is not that we're quicker, but that also we're seeing more positive exits to permanent housing. So where the state average is around 27%, we're seeing a 50% successful placement. And even more important than that is that a recidivism rate for the state of Michigan is around 25%.
Okay.
People having to come back for a second stay at City Rescue Mission was 7% last year.
Excellent.
So all of these programs and services are tailored that if the person will take advantage of it, it can turn things around.
And I think the key word is if the person takes advantage. And so what it boils down to, listening audience, is you have to have the will to want something different. This program is really designed to help you. Sometimes it is the saving grace of people to get back on their feet. And sometimes, and you could talk more about this, Dan, sometimes it is the one thing that gives people the motivation to get back. So sometimes when people come and end up staying, they may actually be hunting a job, or they may actually have a job. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is true. And so we're trying to help facilitate, knock down the barriers of transportation, also, network so that they have the equipment that they need so they can be successful in the job, give the encouragement that they need. Because at the end of the day, we want to see their monthly earnings increase so that way they can have the funds that they need to pay the rent and to be stable and to do the grocery shopping like so many of us take for granted.
Right.
And so we're trying to build all those pieces around. One of the things that we really became motivated about a few years back, we came to the realization that we would do all this work with our guests, and we would try, but we weren't deliberate enough in helping them once they actually got to the point of the move out. And so a lot of times what would happen, and this happens in shelters all across the state, a person finally finds that place, they find that apartment, they sign the lease, they get there, and they're so ill-equipped. Their accommodations were better when they were at the mission than the new home that they have. So we knew we needed to become more deliberate on it, and that's what launched the Impact Designs program. So now what happens when someone completes the program and they're moving into that rent? Now what they do, as soon as they sign that lease, then they meet with our Impact Designs coordinator. And they sit down and they go through about a 45-minute hour interview, a fun interview, like what colors do you like? What themes do you like in your home? And what superheroes does your kid like? And we even ask questions like, are you a Michigan State or a Michigan fan? That kind of stuff. So by the time they get done in that, they know what that family values and what they enjoy. And then the volunteers go to work. They go into the warehouse. And so items that the public has donated, furnishings, household items, all those things, then the volunteers go into the warehouse and they pick all these things specifically thinking about that family in mind. Then they go to the apartment, they measure the rooms, they want to know everything about it, and then they fully decorate, they fully stage the home.
Amazing.
The guest doesn't move any of the furniture. We just go in there, and if you've ever seen the show on TV, Extreme Makeover, they're putting the pictures on the walls, they're making the beds, they have a dining room table, they have the first meals that they need, the pantry stocked. So all of these things happen, and then we do a big reveal. And the family comes in there, and you talk about there's always tears that are shed. It's what we call helping home happen. So now where there was a 50% success rate of somebody to stay stably housed, since we've launched Impact Designs, that's now gone to a 93% success rate.
My goodness. And so, what I hear you again saying is there is a tie there. There is a connection. It doesn't just end on that person's last day.
Correct.
There is a connectedness that's there that says, hey, we will stay in contact. If you need something, I'm sure you guys support. Talk a little bit about that. We got just a couple minutes before we go to the break. But talk about the importance of that, because sometimes for these people, some of them have come from abusive environments. They've never been on their own. There is a lot of anxiety of what am I going to do now? But what are the alternatives?
Well, and even more important, the obstacles that couldn't have been anticipated that also happens once they move out. So when they get involved with the Impact Designs program, we also ask, would you be willing and allow us to come back for home visits once a month over the next 12 months? So you build that opportunity of trust, and then you can come back and say, hey, when you were in the shelter, we talked about budget. How's your budget going? How's your pantry doing? What about the job that you had thought to? All these little dynamics. And so then we can continue to troubleshoot and stay connected. And maybe even more important, the new thing that comes up there, they know they have somebody that'll listen and that cares.
And I think right now where our society is, people need that listening ear. They need somebody to say, hey, I do care. It's not just a job, it's a ministry. And I think that's critical. There's a difference between a job and a ministry. We're there to serve. We're there to be living epistles of Jesus Christ. And so we have to demonstrate that in all that we do. And that's exactly what you all do. So, hey, you've got another fabulous ministry that you're engaged in. I got a couple more questions about City Rescue Mission. I'm going to ask those on the other side. But you're doing another phenomenal work in our city. I want to talk a little bit about that on the other side. So let's take a quick break and we're going to be right back. Hey, we are back. I'm speaking with a good friend, superhero, if you will, and brother here in the city of Saginaw, Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Dan Streeter, for City Rescue Mission of Saginaw. We've been talking about a much needed service to benefit people who sometimes fall on hard times. I want to underscore that because here's the reality. It can happen to anybody at any given day due to circumstances that just flood your lives. And so I always want to make sure people understand. And I was taught this as a child through my mom and my dad. Never laugh at somebody that's down because it could be you the very next moment.
Mm-hmm,
So I'm very sensitive to that. And as a pastor, I understand that. I can't tell you the droves of people that we've had to help with benevolence or clothing or other things. And we do that because there again, we're demonstrating the love of Jesus Christ in all that we do. And so I want to shift winds a little bit and talk about another special project that you and a group of individuals are doing in our community called Higher Purpose. So can you share what that means, how it evolved, and the impact where you are in the community as it relates to that right now?
So Higher Purpose is the birth of about 3 years of work as we have been brainstorming. And what really started us in brainstorming was the lack of affordable housing was a critical one. The Alice population,
and
knowing
talk
how
about
many
that, just so people hear that when you say Alice, what does that mean?
So United Way has done a lot of studies on this, and so launched this about asset limited, income constrained individuals.
Okay.
So you're running it at the core of it. It's basically individuals who are trying to make a difference, but because you're at an entry level job or because of the size of your family, there's all these different dynamics that it's so difficult to get over the hump.
Gotcha.
And as you start to make some of those improvements in your life, and where you think that there'd be more incentives, you're losing some of the public assistance that you were getting. And so now is even more difficult. You kind of hit these pockets where it's more difficult. And it shouldn't be that way. Well, part of it that motivated us was the lack of affordable housing, knowing where our neighbors are at, seeing what the housing stock looks like in the city of Saginaw and on the east side, and how it continues to diminish. And it's, part of the reason is we have so many landlords and not as many homeowners. And you can look at all the social structure issues, but at the core of it, what started is we need to create more economic opportunity. We need to get at the street level and start to engage with people and start to engage with neighbors. And I think about what it was like growing up, and I think you can relate to this. People knew their neighbors better.
There you go.
There was more of an effort from the 40s till the 80s to know your neighbor more and to be caring and trying to do something. And for whatever reason, we've lost part of that.
There you go.
In our current communities. So that's part of the emphasis. And also, God tells us, love your neighbor.
There you go.
So there's a group of us that started to brainstorm and say, what if? What if we were to do more? Gene Pickelman and Hurley Coleman from CAC and Pastor Chris and yourself, and seeing the example of your church and what you're doing. and Amy Rowe from Mustard Seed,
Right.
and then Pastor Roy from 1 Week 1 Street.
Mm-hmm.
So we started getting together and just saying, what if?
Right.
What could we do?
Mm-hmm.
And Gene donated the building that is now on Holland Avenue. It's an 11,000 square foot building. We had the dream of doing what we would call street level case management, taking the fight into our neighborhoods.
I'm with you.
And everybody that was at the table has been trying to do these things and saying, if we were to come together in a conjoined effort, what might we be able to do? We could remove more blight.
Right.
We could help more families with weatherization, like what CAC does, and small home repairs. We could get neighbors feeling safe to be able to talk to each other.
Right.
And more importantly, we can bring the things to the neighborhood that people didn't realize were available for them because of either technology barriers or a knowledge barrier, or an intimidation on what it would take to apply for some of these things.
I got you.
So now we've been creating events like job fairs focused in on the neighborhood.
Excellent.
Education classes about how to maintain your home. And in fact, just this past Tuesday, with a partnership with Covenant, they're at Higher Purpose. We had a group of people and they came in for a couple hours through that session. 4 people immediately walked away hired.
Wow.
And have a job now at Covenant. And there's a couple more that are applicants that are getting ready. So it's these types of real frontline things. And now God continues to blow open the doors. And because of our working together, it's now created a chapter of Sleep in Heavenly Peace to now also be at that site and just now starting to do deliveries and get beds to kids who have no beds.
Wow. You know, again, and this work is so phenomenal because what you're in essence saying to the community, particular community that has been ravaged by drugs, again, tremendous turnover in housing, and we've had an economic downturn. What Higher Purpose is really saying is we really do value you. We really do care. And we're not just saying that, we're going to demonstrate that by resources and collaboration coming right to your doorstep. And I say this to every resident in the city of Saginaw. It's our job to be our brother's keeper. And that's really what, God has designed us to be. I can remember, just like you said, living over on 14th Street.
Yep.
Literally blocks away from City Rescue Mission of Saginaw. I used to walk by there every day going to Central Middle School. And so I knew the area very well. I lived there. I rode my bike. I was a resident there. And I'm blessed now that the church I serve in is within a block or 2 or 3 away. So we're all teaming together to help people that are less fortunate than we are. And I think people need to understand that our goal is not to expose you, but our goal is really figure out ways to transform you and make life better. And sometimes there are challenges involved in it. And I'm sure you deal with that often with people that come to City Rescue Mission of Saginaw right now. But Higher Purpose goal is to lift people and to take them out of those mindsets of there is no hope. It is what it is. This can be a better life. So talk about some of the projects that I know were on the table, and there's been conversation about what Higher Purpose will be doing.
So perfect example is 1 Week 1 Street, the partnership that we have with 1 Week 1 Street. Just met with Pastor Roy and Tamara yesterday.
Okay.
As we're gearing things up for their big event that they have every year. And we've been trying to help them with their capacity to raise more funds so they could do more. I think last year they did 4 or 5 roofs, and we did siding for a couple homes. One amazing story, a young lady who had inherited the house. Her mom passed away, but the house was decaying around her. And 1 Week 1 Street came in, loved on her, helped put on a new porch, helped put new siding.
Excellent.
And so what was probably going to become a homeless situation for her in about 2 years was now she has a great home that's going to be there for her for 20, 25 years.
Excellent.
Protected from the weather. And just all the things that happens with 1 Week, 1 Street. So we're trying to duplicate that, raise enough funds so we can do it now in 2 neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just thinking, wow, if more neighbors, more churches, more individuals, more businesses
Mm-hmm.
become more aware, and let's roll up our sleeves and let's do more.
Mm-hmm.
How many more sites, how many more neighborhoods could we restore and bring back the pride? And more importantly, talking to your neighbor again.
There you go.
So that's one of the things that is gaining traction. We've had some positive answers already. So we know that we're going to have more funds ready to do more homes, more blocks this year.
Excellent.
More classes are coming out through Higher Purpose. That is so people can come in, get classes, and then it allows for our staff to be able to engage with them and open up more doors of opportunities, what's available for them. And then the Sleep in Heavenly Peace opportunity, delivery of beds is now getting ready to happen. Statistics would show, based on the population, and we're only able to open up one zip code at a time. So the first zip code is going to be 48601.
Okay.
But statistics would show that about 3,600 beds need to be made and distributed. There's that much need.
Wow.
And I believe that they've undervalued how difficult things are in Saginaw right now and how depressed the economy. I really believe that number is going to be more than 5,000 once it's all said and done. So we've got a huge work that we're doing, but the spigot's been turned on.
Okay.
And the beds are going to start to get scattered here. And
excellent.
It's a fun, I've been involved with a couple builds. It's such a fun way to be able to corporately do something and then see the end product. So this past Saturday, we made 50 beds that are now going to get distributed to families.
That's phenomenal. And I think people need to understand, our goal is elevation of people that are facing a crisis in their life. We want people to understand at any given moment, any of us can fall into that situation. We know the average home age in our community is 60 plus years old, particularly on the east side. We know that. We know that with a huge exodus due to GM and other businesses, those residents have now become limited areas where people now live. Some of it was swept away by drugs and just deterioration. And so now we're trying to revitalize. And I think people need to hear that. So, part of this, again, we can only do so much. We need you to believe, and belief goes beyond just saying, hey, that's a great idea. The next question ought to be, I wonder, how can I help? And some of the ways you could do that with City Rescue Missions is by giving donations. So let me ask the question, what kinds of donations do you accept? Volunteerism, monetary wise, training wise, talk about that a little bit.
So all of the above. And so the easiest thing to do is to go to our webpage, rescuemidmichigan.org.
Okay.
And in that, it has what is our current needs list. So our directors have come together and taken a look at what our inventory is. And so these are the things that we know that we are getting low on right now.
Okay.
And that we could use help. And then obviously volunteer hours, volunteerism, coming in and helping to do an impact designs move, or helping to organize the warehouse, helping with blight removal, helping in the kitchen. And so wherever your talents and your desires are, or helping in the chapel ministry.
Gotcha.
Because that happens every night. So, or teaching a life skill class. So there's on the website, there's a whole list of all these things. And then obviously the easy one to do or to think about is the monetary donation.
Gotcha.
But to me, I think it's important that people know that it doesn't matter what the amount is. Every dollar matters.
Amen to that.
And it's the corporate. It's because people have given to the ministry for 120 years that has allowed us to stay in existence, has allowed us to dream about what it is that God wants for this community. And you've empowered us to be able to continue to roll up our sleeves and do more. Now,
I want to pause a minute, because there again, I did not ask you this before, but I think it's imperative for people to understand where you're located, and give us the website again, because I want people to know where you're located, because it's critical. You're not off in Never Land just doing things there to impact. You're right there in the thick. So give us your address.
1021 Burt Street. So we're basically about a half mile away from the police station.
Okay.
And you just come straight down Genesee, right on the corner of Burt and Genesee. And we've been at that location since 1982. In the back parking lot is a 5,000 square foot warehouse that we call our donation center.
Okay.
So if you have material goods that you want to donate, you just pull right up 9 to 5 any day, and you can drop them off there and we'll help unload it. And then we have the new site, Higher Purpose, that's on 2800 Holland Avenue. And I'd have to give a shout out. We're only like a half mile away from Baldwin's restaurant. That's now my favorite restaurant. And so we are doing operations there as well. And then we have a Good Samaritan Rescue Mission in Bay City as well. That's on 713th and 9th Street near the downtown area of Bay City.
Excellent. So as you can see, it's not just Saginaw. And again, I want to emphasize 120 years of impact. That's phenomenal. That's foundational. It speaks to the fact that you have been a beacon of light to help people, not just here in Saginaw, but also in Bay City. And I'm sure there again, the residents of Bay City and Saginaw have appreciated the work you do. As relates to the donations, what types of donations? If people want to drop off things, washers, dryers, give us some idea.
So we try to avoid some of the mechanical things because usually there's repairs that happen and that adds some difficulties. But
Gotcha.
Things like the normal things that we need for our home, the cleaning supplies, the towels, the linens, usually twin size beds. If you have gently used furniture, sometimes that you're not using it anymore, you bought something new, but this one still has great life to it.
Gotcha.
Donate those types of items, obviously clothing items. And so all these things together. It just, I can't emphasize enough that God's put us through this walk, but it's something that all of us, you get motivated, you hear, and what is going to help Higher Purpose to continue to grow is that people respond and see what can I consider doing to maybe getting involved and thinking about my neighbor. And we're trying to approach it in a different way. So it doesn't matter. East side, west side,
correct.
What business,
correct.
What church, none of it. But it's going to take all of us together,
yes, sir,
to come together and to talk about and to fill the gaps. I don't know what Higher Purpose is going to look like 3 years from now.
Gotcha.
But I know that right now it's about we've got to do something.
And I think that's critical for, again, the listening audience to understand that there are a lot of what they call navel gazers, people that sit around and they're self-absorbed and they're into themselves and they're talking about how bad things look. But we don't want to just talk about what they look like. We want to dream and envision what it can be going forward.
Exactly.
And that's part of, when you think about the name Higher Purpose, it's saying we want to lift, we want to move higher. And it requires all of us, educated, uneducated, young, old. If you could donate an hour, if you could come by and cook or prepare or do those things, every minute counts. Every minute is important when it comes to helping, again, this ministry do phenomenal work in our community. So when it comes to the church, and we know that everything, and you and I have been having this conversation in very general ways, talking about the love of Jesus Christ and our neighbor and stuff like that. What would be some things that the local church can do to serve the homeless and collaborate with you?
So I think easy ones is come in and help do a meal together.
Okay.
So even the 4 or 5 church members want to come together, I think they would have fun. It's a fellowship opportunity for them, but then they can do something together that knows I can now see as I'm serving this meal, I can see the impact that it had to that person, ministering that love. To me, that's one of the door openers for our guest. When, sometimes you can view it cynically. Well, you do this job because you're paid for it. But when a volunteer comes in on their own accord and they see how they're doing, that breaks down so many barriers. So that's one piece. I think another piece is like we're trying to start up some prayer walks,
Mm-hmm.
just getting out in the neighborhood together corporately.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not knocking on doors. We're just praying for the community.
Wow.
And that creates a momentum of
Mm-hmm.
unity.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's piece of it. Maybe helping in a day on doing the blight removal, helping swing a nail, helping mow a lawn.
Gotcha.
So it's all of these little things. And the other thing that I've learned is that every church in this area has unique talents.
Correct.
They have unique passions.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what is helping them. So maybe it's that church has a finance class.
Mm-hmm.
Another one might have a daycare.
Gotcha.
Another one has, these different passions. So let's bring them all together, network them together. So that way they're getting full usage and they're elevated and everybody benefits.
There you go. And let me throw this out there, because again, another way that people can help is, we know that several times a year there's a fifth Sunday. And, for those that are interested in, if you want to talk about, remember now, it's called City Rescue Mission of Saginaw. So the word mission is there. We know it's part of, how we've been designed. If you just took one fifth Sunday and said, okay, on this fifth Sunday, we're going to receive an offering that can be dedicated to this, you'd be surprised. And as I'm saying that, I'm thinking that myself, you'd be surprised at how much it would impact City Rescue Missions of Saginaw and transform lives. Maybe you can't physically go, but maybe you have some finance. Maybe you got some extra dollars that maybe you can use or you can donate that would help change lives. So I think that's another way. I mean, you could do it however you want to do it. I'm just trying to give people some options. But with limited time left, any other comments that you want to throw out there for people to hear from you?
So some people maybe have taken offense and say, my group has been doing this for a long time. And what makes you think you're so special? Or this has been happening here. And I'm saying, I award all that. I agree with all that.
Right.
But what's obvious is that our silos cannot solve the problem.
Correct.
We got to break down the silos and come have the conversations and let's be community.
And I think the key to that is we've got to get to a point where we understand no man is his own island.
Yes.
And we've got to be transparent enough and trusting enough to understand that when we come together, it is for the greater good of everybody in Saginaw, Midland, and in Bay City. It's not about me trying to outdo you, trying to get a bigger budget than you. One day Jesus Christ was with his disciples and he saw some of his disciples saw some other people and said, well, those guys over there doing so and so and so. And say, listen, he said, don't worry about them. Let them do what they're doing. Let's keep the main thing. It's not taken away.
Yeah.
There's enough people in this city, 50,000, a little bit under, where everybody can impact somebody.
And what I love is that you can start to see it's contagious and the tide is changing. And I know that the pastors have been meeting deliberately about how can we now make a change together corporately.
Excellent.
And so the church community is doing it and we need it. And we're rolling up our sleeves and want to be another partner. We just need people.
Excellent. Well, hey, we are out of time, but let me pause again and thank you, Mr. Dan Streeter, Chief Executive Officer of City Rescue Mission of Saginaw, for being here and sharing some very treasured and great information. I've learned a lot today. I'm sure the radio audience has learned a lot as well. Let me thank Alpha Media, KISS 107.1 for this platform. Let me thank again my trusty engineer, Mr. Matthew Lester, who's done a stupendous job in keeping us on task, on time. New Life Baptist Ministry, Saginaw African American Pastors. Let me thank all of you for this opportunity. Here's a closing thought. And this is anonymous, but it is powerful. And it says this: when life gets hard, try to remember the life you complain about is only a dream to some other people. That speaks volumes. I'm praying that you'll pray for City Rescue Mission so that it does a phenomenal job. Pray for the leadership. Pray for our community. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week, same time. God bless you. That's our prayer.